Hello and welcome to the Passport Files. I'm your host, Brian Clark. Today on the show, we welcome Sarah Hauman. Sarah is an award winning chef who starred on season 18 of Top Chef Portland. Sarah's also the queen of yogurt, loves tiny fish, and much more. Hi, Sarah, and welcome to the Passport Files.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
I'm such a fan. I really appreciate you coming on here because I am a Bravo Top Chef super fan.
Are you one of those people that has those brackets? You do the Top Chef Fantasy League.
Now I am.
You didn't know it existed. Now you do.
Well,
Now I've created a monster.
my fiance Amber is not gonna like this. I'm gonna make some brackets now. So, hello, welcome. So, for those who don't know, who have been living under a rock, have not watched Top Chef, tell us who you are.
So, I'm Sarah. Just a regular old human. I'm originally from the San Diego area. I spent a fair bit of time in San Francisco. I also spent a fair bit of time, very luckily, cooking in Spain. And now I am in Portland, Oregon. I seem to just be wiggling my way up the coast, but I worked in restaurants, kitchens for about 18 years. And then a couple years ago decided, after the show, of course, to get my butt into gear and do the thing that I always wanted to do and have my own business that was not necessarily a restaurant. That's never what excited me, was being the chef and owner of a restaurant. This wasn't, I never thought about doing that. I really just wanted to have a product. And fish was always something that I loved. I love the ocean, obviously being from San Diego area and living and working in Spain. The fancy fish in a can, as I like to call it, the fancy fish in a can culture is very strong there. So having lived and worked there, it was, to me, it's always been kind of this art form to take something so highly perishable and to preserve it at the peak of its, I guess, performance, ripeness, if you will, and be able to enjoy it for years to come. So I think I'm excited that we're now living in a time of people who are embracing some more preserved goods. And I think the pandemic definitely helped that as we all stockpiled our pantries for sure.
That's perfect. Now, TinyFishCo, tell us a little bit more about that. What was your motivation behind creating TinyFishCo?
Yeah, so I don't know. I found myself really unhappy as the chef of a restaurant. I love working with food, but there's just this like there's a lot of pressure, especially, in the last, I don't know, handful of years where you have the internet and have, we're constantly consuming information and what's the next best thing? What's the cool trend? And I felt like it wasn't really about how delicious your food was or how honest your food was. It's about how Instagram worthy it is. It's about how trendy it is. And it really kind of just like took the soul and the love out of it. I've never really been someone to cook I don't know, anything but very just simple food. And I know sometimes you look at my food and you're like, wow, there's so much going on, but really there's maybe five ingredients in it. It's nothing crazy. It's just the way that I think about, adding sodium to a dish as opposed to sprinkling salt. I'll add something else. And so you get kind of this like optical illusion, if you will. But I think for me, I really, it wasn't making me happy. And when you think about owning a restaurant, the profit margins are so thin and labor is such a huge issue. And a lot, we're coming out of a very toxic kitchen culture and legacy that we've all known. And it's great that we're changing things, but to change that culture, cooking food takes time. There's no getting around that. It takes time and you have to have a person there. It's long hours and long days, and things cost more money, people cost more money, life costs more money. You have to pay these people appropriately. You have to pay health insurance. I knew so many restaurants when I was 22, 23, where you started working there in the kitchen and you're lucky if they even offered you insurance. It wasn't a guarantee that you would have insurance offered to you for your job. And even if it was offered, you still had, that was still coming out of your pocket, 100 or $200 a month. And I think now it's just a little bit different, and people are demanding what they should be demanding, of course, but that means that the food has to be more expensive. And I think with restaurants, it just came to be this double-edged sword. And I didn't see really a good way out of it other than trickling down the price increase to the customers. But then, of course, you've got Yelp and all these things. It's just kind of this constant. I felt judged all the time. People will walk in and it's like, why do I have to pay $26 for this pasta that's very simple? And having to explain to people the reasoning behind it just seemed really sad and silly. And of course, now I make a very high-end product where people are like, oh, this is like 3 ounces of fish, you're charging $15 for it. But I have a little bit more of a larger platform to stand on and to educate and say, this is what I want to do. And it's less for me about the success of a business. To me, it's more about how do I educate people about choosing more sustainable choices, and the environmental advocacy of it all. Because I think for me, again, it was really unfulfilling working in restaurants because you're just constantly thinking about money. You're like, oh, I need to charge this much. You're just constantly thinking about money, and then the dishwasher doesn't show up. And again, it takes all the love out of the main purpose, which for me was always supporting local farmers, people doing really good things. And it just gets really hard to do that when you're constantly looking at the bottom line. So for me, Tiny Fish was a way to be able to give back to the environment, I guess, in a positive way. And I don't know, I literally had always wanted to do some sort of food product. When I was a kid, I would go into my grandma's basement. My dad's from the Midwest, and so my grandma had a basement just full of preserved whatever, pickles, weird mayonnaise-y things. I don't know. But I was constantly fascinated with the preservation of anything. And so being who I am, I'm like, what is the absolute most highly perishable food that I could possibly think of? Obviously, fish. How would I put that in a can? That seems crazy. Ooh, that's an interesting idea. But I just always thought it was so far out of reach. I didn't really know how to approach it. And then everything kind of just like fell into place, and the puzzle pieces came together and figured it out and pushed it
So
down.
how did you figure it out? Like, because one does not just say, "Hey, I want to, put some tiny fish in a can and sell it to the world and make it amazing." Like, how did that process come together?
So, I, I was on the silly reality show, and one of the questions that they had asked me was, "What is your dream?" And I said, to own a boutique cannery one day, which really was my dream. I actually left San Francisco. It'll be 5 years ago this year. 5 years ago, I left San Francisco, and I was leaving my job. I was explaining to my employer that I wanted to give myself a fair opportunity one day owning my own business, and the cost of living and operating in San Francisco just seems not smart. And I wanted to do my fish business. And she was kind of like, I don't understand. What is it? Where did this come from? This fish business? I'm like, I don't know. It's just always been there. So when I moved up, I actually I bought a Ford Transit van. I bought like a work van. I didn't even buy a regular car. I hadn't had a car. I didn't need a car in San Francisco. So the first car I ever bought was this Ford Transit van that I still drive as my everyday car. So I just look like a soccer mom, quite honestly. But I just always had this idea about it. And what I thought, or at least what I was working towards, was doing a refrigerated pickled anchovies, so like Spanish boquerones. And I had worked towards that, just using whatever spare money I had, um, and not really like developing it. I just kind of wanted to go through the steps of doing stuff like a HACCP, which is what you have to do when you create some sort of refrigerated food product, and kind of going through the classes and going through the motions of starting a business almost. It was like a little rough draft project for me. And then the pandemic happened, and Top Chef had reached out to me years before, and I just kept telling them no, but it was the pandemic. Oh,
What
sure,
else are
yeah.
you gonna
People
do?
are doing weird stuff right now. Yeah, let's just go. So I went on the show, and then I told them, my actual dream, which was to can fish. So after that aired, I had a friend of mine who had asked me, why aren't you doing this fish thing that you want to do? And I said, well, I mean, I started doing this refrigerated anchovy product, and I realized the amount of work that goes into it. And it's a passion project. It's not going to make money. It's just a passion project. And he said, listen, you should just figure it out. I got really lucky in my career. I want to give you money because you're going to do me a favor as much as I'm going to do you a favor. I don't want to be your business partner. It's essentially a personal loan. Um, and there's no getting it twisted. I know what I am. I'm a private little savings account for him, but he gave me a really good interest rate, and he gave me most of all the motivation to get off my butt and do something about it and figure it out. So I had money, and my first loan payment was due 2 years from that day that he gave me money. So I thought, okay, now I really have to get the ball rolling. So I started doing a bunch of research about canning equipment and how do I do this, calling people, anyone who would talk to me. And I realized that, well, one, it was going to cost a lot more money. And two, um, it was just maybe, I don't know, it still seemed a little out of reach. I very, very lucky had a cannery reach out to me and ask if I wanted to do some recipe development for them. So I went up, it's in Willapa Bay, which is about 2.5 hours from Portland. So I went up there and I talked to the guys in charge and said, hey, what do you tell me what's going on? So they let me know kind of what they were thinking. And then I was telling them about the fact that I just got this money and I needed to like start a cannery very naively. I was like, I need to start this cannery. I don't know how to do it. Would you be willing to like help mentor me and guide me in a good direction? And they basically said, you do realize like you could just come here and do your R&D and you don't have to buy the canning stuff. We can just do it for you.
Wow.
Like most people do it this way, Sarah. It's called co-package. Oh, that's very cool. Okay, let's talk about this. So then I realized I found the solution to my problem, which was that I could indeed, with the money that I had, get the raw materials, do my R&D, and come out with a product. So that's kind of the way that I go. It is still very different from a lot of different tinned fish companies. I mean, you see so many nowadays, but when you look at the label and you're like, okay, this is a whatever, a domestic tinned fish company, and then but it's this product of Spain, and so that they're imports. It's just an import company. So for me, it's really about choosing one different species that we have here in abundance on the West Coast, that are different than you usually find in a can. So yeah, salmon and tuna are great, but that for me is like the red meat of the sea. We have so many different underutilized species here. It's important for me to highlight those and to use really fun flavors in order to encourage people to eat those. And of course, that just makes my product very different from everything that's out there. And the fact that I do work really hard to come up with these recipes. I do make all the spice mixes myself and transport them to the cannery. For me, that's the way that I was able to start this business without having to have that huge capital upfront expenditure of, at least $500,000. You're talking just to get the canning equipment and infrastructure kind of built. Um, and that's why there is a lack of canneries, it used to be a big industry, in the 50s, and it's not as big of an industry anymore. So there's a lack of canneries. There's really not a whole lot out there. And that means there's a lack of canning equipment, and it's just hard to find, very expensive. And it's really hard to find labor to keep those canneries operating. So it's a huge endeavor to start a cannery. We'll see. I've got lots of people asking me
Are you
if I
hiring right
would
now,
ever start a
is
cannery.
it just you in there making the recipes, creating it, going out into the boats, catching the fish, and then canning yourself? How big is your operation right now?
My operation, so I source the fish and I get that fish delivered to the cannery. I will make the spice mixes personally and source all the other raw ingredients like olive oil, and then I will transport that up to the cannery, and then they have my recipe and they manufacture it for me.
So how scary was that? Because you know,
It's actually pretty scary because I'm using a manufacturer. This is the other bit of using a manufacturer. Because I'm using a manufacturer, that's great. It takes a lot of the heavy work off of me. But my my minimum production run is 10,000 units. So I am essentially creating, it's like I have a high volume manufactured product with a small business mentality, which is pretty cool, but also very, very scary and very, very hard as someone who's never had a business before. And I had to literally commit to 10,000 units and hope, cross my fingers that I was going to sell through it. um I was in a very deep dark place last year because I didn't think I was going to sell through it. I started with 4 different products, which was maybe crazy, a little bit over ambitious on my end. Because again, you're like 10,000 units, that's totally fine, and then you realize 10,000 is a lot. That's pallets and pallets of fish. And not only that, now where am I going to store it? Who's going to help me sell it? I'm not a salesperson. um it's a lot. You kind of just have to learn as you go and hope you don't make super expensive mistakes.
now
I've been very lucky thus far.
have you felt that your time on Top Chef, you're being recognizable? Has that helped you in your adventures, being an entrepreneur and at Tiny Fish?
Absolutely. I think at a very base level, it's helped to, get these different social media gigs and get private chef gigs. So, on top of creating this business, I wasn't necessarily I hustle super hard, but I wasn't having to factor in trying to pay myself or trying to pay my bills into this whole thing because I have so many side gigs available. And I get busy at times, and I'm getting better at, you know, hiring the help that I need for the company now. But, for me, the biggest part was not, I really didn't want to pay myself with a company that I wasn't sure was even going to like happen yet. So I wouldn't say that I put it on the back burner last year, but I sat on my inventory and just kind of let things grow slowly and naturally while I got myself in a personally good financial position so that this year I could really kind of like put my head down and really go for it with my company. So that's been pretty pretty integral for the success, I think, is having those gigs where I'm stressing about money and stressing about the company the whole time. I've been able to really focus on the things that excite me, which again is the environmental advocacy bit of it. And I think once you stop focusing on like the true mission and purpose of why you built your business, and you're just thinking numbers and statistics and growth and that's a great business mentality, but I think you lose a lot of the love, like, and the same thing I was missing in restaurants. You lose a lot of the love and the soul in it. So it was really important to me that I take care of the money thing on my own and on my side. And if that means I work really hard, then that means what I do, because I would rather have a company that's long lasting than this business idea that someone maybe might buy from me. That's not, that's just not something that I thought I'm going to make this cool company and someone's going to pay me millions of dollars to buy it from me, which is what a lot of companies do these days. I just don't, that's not my thing.
I love that about you, that you're focused on, the love of what you do instead of the profits, and you don't really see that much anymore. And it's amazing that you were like, hey, I'm just gonna leave. You had the courage to leave, the industry that you were in for so long, and said, you know what, I'm gonna do what I love, and then I'm just gonna, because you see a lot of people that did that, especially during the pandemic. They were like, you know what, I'm just gonna go and do this, and the heck with it, and whatever happens happens. But if I put, I stay strong, and focus on why I'm doing it, it'll be a success. And it seems like you're there, you're doing that, and it's a lot of work. But you're also, how hard is it to kind of allow people in to be a part of the process, because it seems like you want to be hands on and do everything. How hard is it to let go of some of that responsibility and delegate some of that to others?
It is, yeah, I find it very, very hard. It is, for instance, I just recently hired someone to help with my social media stuff for Tiny Fish. And, it's a very new relationship. We've only been working together for a few weeks. And, um, you know, there's the conversation that I need to have today, because I'm meeting right after this, is that it has to be, because I'm working with a video person and they want to do the best job that they can do. But I also have to say, but it has to be me. I don't want people to look at this and say, she hired someone to do her social media. I want someone to look at it and say, oh, cool, Sarah's just putting out a lot more content. Because it's important that people understand that I'm not, I don't like when things are too salesy, and it kind of has to still have that like rough and tumble first person feel to it. Um, so it's been difficult, but I am giving things a try, mostly because I don't have any other choice right now. I am super busy. I have a couple consulting projects that I'm working on, and then I'm constantly, and again, this is why, I have been able to kind of be, knock on wood, um, doing as well as I have with the business so early on, because I just say yes to things, and maybe it's not financially lucrative, or, whatever it is, but I say yes to things because I think it's just important to keep moving, people oftentimes like, you're always traveling, you're always here, you're always there. And I go, yeah, it seems that way because on my Instagram. But I make it that way. I love traveling and I love doing what I do. And so I've been I used the creative bit of my brain to start this crazy business. And then I had to use the creative bit of my brain when I didn't have the money to hire a salesperson or anything, to say, what do I do? I don't know. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a marketing person. What am I going to do? Okay, well, I know what I do best. I go to restaurants and I cook. So maybe I'll just go do that, but I'll do it with my product. And then I went and did that with my product, just thinking that I was moving through my inventory so I could do better the next round. And then I go, oh my gosh, I'm increasing sales because I'm going to different places. And then I'll have an influx of sales in that city or in that area because I did this special dinner there. So for me, it's just, you don't have to be a business person. I talk a lot about the advocacy of the environment and sustainability, and I don't have a science degree either, but I read a lot. I watch a lot of silly documentaries on YouTube. I've worked really hard to just completely immerse myself, not just in the business aspect, but in the sustainability aspect. and be creative with where my skills lie and how I can apply those to a business. Because again, maybe like I didn't even know that you could go back. I approached this whole thing with I'm a chef, this is how I do things. And that's why I will always do my own spice mixes. I'm never going to contract that out to someone. I'm never going to have the cannery do that because no matter how much production volume I end up having, to me, it's so important to say, I produce 100,000, 200,000 units a year, but I still can say that I, in the least creepy way, touch every can. you know,
That's the least creepy way you could
it's
say.
the least creepy way.
Hey, well, and that's so important, and that would, for me, being a consumer, your passion, and the fact that you're hands on, and you believe in sustainability because that's so important, especially now as a consumer. Yeah, I'm willing to pay more for that because your hands are on it. You touch everything, right?
Right.
and 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 you believe in that, and that's so amazing. So I'm going to ask a question. What's scarier, cooking on television for Padma Lakshmi or starting your own business?
Definitely starting your own business. I'll cook anytime on TV for her.
So how was that? Like,
uh,
because it looks like total like stressful chaos, or is that like kind of like production making it look more crazy than it is? Like, what was that like to film for Top Chef?
it was absolutely chaotic. I never put myself in that situation before, so I didn't know what was gonna happen. Why am I gonna like pass out because my heart's beating so fast, or am I gonna be like super shaky? I had no idea. Um, I definitely had my own way of being anxious for sure, but um, yeah, I don't know. You just kind of put yourself in that situation. You just kind of have to do it. I think if I were to go on the show again, I'd have now having my own business. I guess I have a little bit more of a different perspective on the whole thing. I mean, I truly went on the show because I thought that I was going to fail. And I wanted to be out of the food world. I wanted to be out of restaurants. And I thought, okay, well, if I do this thing and I'm really terrible at it, which is probably going to happen, then that will be my driving force to get a real estate license, literally anything else, so I can just get out of the food world and do something else because I obviously suck at it. That was
That's it.
that was what
That's the
that was why
reason.
I went in as like my last, that was like my rock bottom. I was like, I
So
gotta
you
get it.
you were at your rock bottom, and you thought if I failed in front of the world, then that
Yeah,
would be my excuse to get out of
yeah.
there.
Yeah. Because,
Wow.
yeah, that was just like, I gotta be done with this. And the only way I'm gonna do it, and because I had only been doing that one thing for 20 years, I had just worked in restaurants. And I know that I'm good at working in restaurants, but it just wasn't making me happy. I was not happy. And some people didn't like being around me. It was just like I lost all the love for it. I hated, I hated everything. I got a job at a winery where my hours were kind of like normal working hours as opposed to working nighttime, and I thought that that would help, and it still didn't help me. I was every single I still get a little nervous, of course, when I'm cooking because it's a very creative, but I just hated it. I hated that feeling every single day of feeling like everything that I was doing was wrong. I didn't like the way my food tasted. I thought it tasted terrible, and um, yeah, that was a huge reason. I know I didn't go on thinking I was gonna win by any means. I went to thinking the absolute opposite.
And that's interesting because the thing that it seems like you do the best and you're the most talented at, and then what the typical career is for a chef is to work at a restaurant, and you just absolutely just dislike it. It's kind of like Michael Jordan hating basketball. That had to have
Right.
been so difficult for you mentally. Like, how did you deal with that?
Well, I mean, when I first moved to San Francisco, or even when I was in San Diego too, I loved working in kitchens because as a cook, I thought it was incredible. And then you get to be, you kind of climbing up the ladder. And the funny thing with working in kitchens is that you're like, oh, sous chef, yeah, that sounds great. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get paid more money. And then you realize that you get paid more money, sure, on paper, but you have to work more hours. And it's the same thing as a chef. And I'm constantly worried about my employees' work life balance and not my own. I don't even know because I spent a decade plus with my head down. I don't have hobbies. I don't have friends. The friends that I have are people that I work with, but I have a very strong, like, if I'm a manager, I don't hang out with my employees. That's just something that I've always had and feel very strongly about. It got, I think I was so unhappy because I didn't have anything other than the place that I was working at. And that for me just wasn't enough. I felt like almost I was just like pigeonholed into being in a kitchen, and people would come in and look at me and go, "You're good at cooking, but that's all you're good at." And for me, I'm like, I'm gonna be I did good in high school. I got into any university I wanted to go to. I just chose a different path. Don't treat me like I'm not smart. Don't treat me like I don't know what I'm doing and I can't do anything except for be behind the stove. So for me, opening a business was almost like this. It's not only proving to other people, but proving mostly to myself, hey, I actually can do this. I'm not super rusty. I can still educate myself. And maybe I took a weird detour to get here. Maybe it's not the detour that everyone else would take, but I got here. And though, because I took such a strange detour, I I then was able to create a business that's different from other businesses. The way that I do things is so different because I'm not doing them the way someone who went to business school would. And do we need another business run by someone who went to the same business school as everyone else? And then you have this very like blueprinted way of doing things. I think it's really important to embrace my, I don't know, like where maybe I don't have the best skills, and I have just really tried to. I acknowledge that I don't have the business knowledge and savviness, but I also say to myself, I'm not going to give up on that. I'm going to learn as much as I can, and then I'm going to take my experiences and apply that there and say, how can I do this in my way, though? That makes sense to me, because if I try to do it anyone else's way, it's not going to. And that's probably why I took the detour I took, was because everyone told me, oh, you're going to go to college and be so successful and all these things and you get good grades and this and that. And I'm like, don't tell me what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it.
I love that
Maybe
so
it'll be
much.
more difficult, but
Yeah,
if
and
I
we
don't do it my way, it's not going to happen.
exactly. We don't need additional people in the food industry that have MBAs from this school, and and I love hearing you tell your story because it's a lot of times it's so limited being on the show like that. You know that you're at the mercy of editing, and like you said, they kind of pigeonhole you into just this one little box, and that's who you are. And and do you find that it's frustrating that when you meet people like, oh, you're chef from Top Chef, and that's all you are, like no, I'm more than that. I have a story to tell. Like I have a vision, I have a love. Because to me it's more impressive to start your own company from the ground up, and you're the marketing department, you're accounting, you're everything, and you don't
Yeah.
have an MBA, you don't have all of that. To me that's more impressive because where I'm from, West Virginia, you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps and you made it
Yeah.
happen with duct tape and dirt and hard work and just passion. And that to me is more incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I've really ever known. I didn't come from a super elite family. I came from the suburbs of San Diego, very blue collar. My mom like worked for the city, my dad worked for the city, and my mom got laid off, went back to school and became a elementary school teacher. I came from a very blue collar upbringing, and we didn't go on fancy vacations. I didn't have childcare during the summers. I took care of myself. I always worked. I had to work hard for what I had. When I was whatever 14 and could get a job. I got a job so I could have money to spend because I knew that we didn't have, I couldn't just go up with my parents, even if it was just going to the movies. I remember asking, my dad for money to go to the movies one time and he got mad at me because we didn't, it was never this thing like, oh, we're so sad and we don't have money, but we always had everything we needed. It just wasn't this lavish place, and my parents chose to send me to Catholic school until fifth grade. And that's all my friends lived in these big fancy houses, but we lived in like a little townhouse because they chose to give me a good education as opposed to spend their money elsewhere. And so I I don't know. I never really thought about it. All I thought I was, if I want something, I have to work for it. And so I just have always had this very strong work ethic. I've always worked. I had, after high school, I took a year off and I was in the south of Spain. My dad randomly had met online in the little chat rooms when that was how you you would meet people online to date. He met this British woman and fell in love and decided to move to the south of Spain and retire. And I said, okay, I'll do the same. After high school, take a year off. But I actually had, he had emailed my mom. He was like, there's something wrong with Sarah. She's really depressed. I don't know how to fix it, because I wasn't working and I wasn't doing anything. I had worked and I worked 30 hours a week when I was going to high school. I played sports. I did, advanced placement, high school diploma situation. Like I was constantly doing something all the time. And then I was exhausted and wanted to take this year off. And then I realized that I really just like doing stuff. And so I think that's again kind of what happened in the restaurant world too, was I I not that it got easy, but it just was like there wasn't enough unexpected things happening for me. I needed more of a challenge. But I also knew that I didn't want to open a restaurant. I just I like doing stuff. I'm constantly busy. I'm constantly packing my schedule and I'm more happy than I've ever been because I'm always bouncing around and doing all these crazy things. And I know now that that's kind of the key to my happiness. It took a little bit of time to figure that out, but hopefully we can kind of keep on that trajectory. I do always have a plan B, obviously, go back to restaurants, but
Absolutely, like gotta have that plan B, and that's incredible, amazing. I love your spirit and your story because I would have never expected such a dynamic story behind just a little bit of what we saw from you there. So where do you see yourself and your company in like 10 years from now?
I don't
Happy,
know.
thriving.
Oh man. It doesn't really take a whole lot to to make me very happy, obviously. I don't drive a fancy car, I drive a Ford Transit van and I live very humbly. I love traveling. So for me, I don't know that I see myself in this place in 10 years, but if I could hopefully have a dream, it would be that my company kind of, and this is the way that I've been designing it. And the reason that I'm taking a little bit of a hit on money right now is because I want to create a company kind of in the same way that winemakers make wine. And they say, okay, listen, I'm going to produce this many barrels, this many cases of wine every single year because that's how much grapes I'm growing or grapes I'm going to purchase from vineyards. Because I use sustainable species, it's a little bit more of a seasonal product, especially bycatch. So if I can say, okay, I'm going to produce 200,000 units a year, that's what's going to make me enough money to just be happy and do what I want to do. Fantastic. I contract everything out for 6 months out of the year. I am in production, aka making spice mixes, kind of hanging around the Portland area, doing what I got to do. And then for the other 6 months of the year, I'm just sitting on inventory and selling it. And essentially, I can be anywhere in the world that I want to be, enjoying life, traveling. cooking in different places with different friends that I know. That for me, travel is just really important to me. That's how I didn't fall in love with food by traveling. I fell in love with food because once a month we would be able to go out to eat. And I always got to choose because I was the young one. And so I never chose like Red Lobster or, the silly chain restaurants. I chose like, it would always be like, I want to go to Indian food. Because that for me was how I got to experience different cultures. So as I've gotten older, I don't, again, I don't care about what car I drive. I don't care about how big of a house I live in. I'd actually rather live in a small apartment. It's less to clean.
Right.
To me, what I like to spend my money on is travel and going places and meeting people and doing that sort of thing. I've always been very nomadic, and it just kind of plays to my lifestyle. But if I can have a company that I can run essentially by myself, contracting everything out, and I can run it half time wherever else I want or need to be, doing whatever else I want or need to do, that for me is
I
success.
love that. That's my success. I mean, that sounds like just being able to travel the world.
I mean, yeah, you have a whole world map behind you.
Trying to fill that trying to fill that thing up, absolutely. So when did you first, because this is a passport files, I ask everyone this. When did you get your first passport and where did you travel to?
I got my first passport when I was probably, she was like, whatever age you are. It was the summer between eighth grade and high school for me. Uh, I had advanced though, so I was a year younger, whatever that is, 12, 11, 12. Um,
Somewhere.
um, so I got a passport then. I had gotten this like weird opportunity to do some sort of study, like summer abroad thing. So I had to like raise money for it. It was a whole thing. Basically, it was me asking like whatever the Kiwanis Club of the town I lived in for, I don't know, $1,000, and then after I had to go and like give a speech to old people about what I learned. But I had gone to the whole United Kingdom, so England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. That was the first time that I traveled abroad, and I did it um, not completely by myself. I did it with like this company with other kids and whatever, but I didn't go with my parents or anything. It wasn't a family vacation. It was definitely an educational situation. And then one of the host families that I stayed with in England invited me back the next summer. So I ended up going back to England the next summer. And that's probably why I don't know, I love traveling abroad. I travel abroad more by myself than probably most people in the world. I actually really enjoy traveling by myself. I think you meet a lot more people and a lot more friends when you're just sitting solo, in a bar, enjoying the heck out of a plate of, fresh prawns and a glass of wine, whatever it is. If you're with someone, no one bothers you. And if you're by yourself, a lot of people come up and say, "Hey, what's your story? Why are you by yourself? We're in
What
this
you
beautiful
doing?
place. What are you doing?"
Hey, American lady, what's your what's your story? And there's a level of freedom to that. I've traveled
Hmm.
by myself places, and I love traveling with friends and my fiance Amber. So if she's listening to this, know that I prefer traveling with you. But before I met her, I used to travel a lot by myself, and there's a level of freedom, just
Hmm.
having knowing that it's all you, that everything you do on a whim, you can go climb up, a mountain or just
Yep.
sleep in or do whatever. It's so much freedom with that. It's such a pleasurable experience just traveling by yourself.
Yep. I have so many people who go, "Don't you get bored?" Or like, I don't know. I spend so much time on my thoughts. Again, I literally took myself to Mexico for my birthday a few weeks ago by myself. Within 3 hours of getting to my destination, I had been invited to a pool party in on the weekend. This is
Yeah. So I found that when you're on solo trips, you're never alone. You
You
always
are.
find people, and it's great. And that's the best way to meet people, because you could be, vibing with someone, but the group that you're with is not, and then you have to just, leave or whatever.
Hmm.
So that is just incredible. And you meet some amazing people and lifelong friends. I do have a question though.
Sure.
I've been wondering about this, and I'm sure the audience is as well. Why are you the yogurt queen, and when did that happen?
So remember that thing where I was like, yeah, I don't know, my anxiety on the show took hold in different ways. That's what yogurt came in. I don't know. I mean, I do love yogurt. I do use it quite often, but no more or less than I would use creme fraiche or sour cream. It's just I felt like every single time I went to the fridge, the only thing that was there was yogurt. So I just used yogurt. Uh, it it was just one of those nervous ticks, and then it kind of turned into a thing.
A
And so
thing.
I was like,
Did you get
I'll
any
just play into
yogurt
it. I'll
brand
just
deals?
play into it. It adds creaminess. It adds acidity. It's delicious.
Did like YoPlay come and offer you like a brand deal? Do you have like a yogurt deal now? Didn't parlay didn't parlay
No,
that into no plans
no.
on creating a
I
yogurt
I
company?
really tried hard for it, but it just didn't come to me. It's okay.
That would
They're
be
like, this lady's too granola anyways. It doesn't, we gotta have a different audience. She is our audience.
oh man, that would be so great. Like just having your face on some yogurt would just be perfect synergy. I think the
You
yogurt
would
people
think.
missed out on that one.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I'm still here. Would love the yogurt contract.
Absolutely. It's big yogurt, if you're listening, we have a person, big yogurt. Come on now. Let's go. Let's make it happen. So where's your next travel destination to?
My next travel destination, I mean, I have work travel planned. I'll be
Ooh,
in New York City at the end of June, and then half of July, I'm in California again. Um, some of it for fun though. My buddy's getting married in Yosemite, so it'll be a weekend of wedding festivities, and then I'm up in San Francisco. And then August, I might take myself some. I usually these days have been doing something a little bit last minute on the travel front. August, we'll see. There's a possibility I might take myself to Asia. We'll see. I don't know yet. I have to kind of see how the next month shakes out,
isn't that
and see what
amazing?
what work entails.
Just might go to
I
Asia.
might.
That's
It's
awesome.
funny too, and that's another reason I travel by myself is because I make plans very last minute. Everyone's like, Sarah, I can't go on this abroad trip with you to Europe because you literally told me in 9 days that we're leaving. No, I can't go.
Ah, to have that freedom is incredible. I love that so much. It's so great. I one day I want to be like you when I grow up. Just have that freedom.
Well,
It's the goal.
it's not necessarily freedom, and it's this like I finally get through all of the like work and all the mud, and then I go, I have 7 days. I must go
Okay.
somewhere.
Do you find me? I love the. Are you a planner? Do you plan everything? Like, do you like? I'm gonna go here, there, or do you just kind of like wing it? What's your travel style?
Travel style, I wing it.
Wing it.
I
Aren't you afraid you're gonna miss out though on something amazing?
I sometimes will look up certain things that I might be interested in, uh, but I don't ever itinerary for myself. I have like some restaurants that I might want to go to, some museums that I might want to hit up, or whatever it might be. I might have one or two of those things on a trip and say, okay, I definitely want to go there at some point, but I never plan too much. I kind of just figure it out as I go. But I think figuring out as you go again provides you with a lot more freedom, to kind of just go with the flow. And if I meet someone and they're like, oh, let me take you to this really cool place that I would have never known about because a local is now showing me around, I feel like that's almost a little bit better. And a lot of times, like, you see what is there to do in this town, and you go on TripAdvisor or wherever, and it's telling you what to do, and then you go there and the locals are like, I mean, you can go spend your money on that if you want, but it's not that exciting.
I love that. The locals are give the best advice. Like, get out of here, TripAdvisor. No Yelp, absolutely not. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I went here and it was scary and dangerous, and don't go
Yeah.
there after. Like, get out of here.
I
I
mean, I was in Colombia over the holidays and I booked my trip and then it was like Colombia raised to threat level 3, don't travel there. And I'm like, I felt so safe there. I felt more safe there than a lot of places that I've traveled to. I think, I don't know.
agreed. I love that. Just go there and wing it and have a great time and just take,
Yeah,
just
stupid.
yeah.
Don't pull your phone out and, be staring at your phone the whole time. I'm very, I wouldn't say that I'm super cautious, but, I don't do stupid things. I don't, wear ton of jewelry out. If
Walk around with your
you
money
know,
gun.
exactly. Like, I know that in some places I stick out like a sore thumb, especially with tattoos, because I forget I even have those. But at the end of the day, it's like, again, don't go in a dark, scary alley by yourself. Stay in populated areas. I generally like to travel to bigger cities, so
I
it's
love that. You
it's
walk around
nice.
confident like a boss, anyways. Like you have that confidence, you have that swagger. I love that. So no one's gonna mess with you. You're awesome. You're amazing.
I don't know about that.
Well, yeah, you're a bad boss, entrepreneur, chef. Everything is just incredible. You pursued your dreams. Like that to me is such an inspiring story. Like you could have just been in the restaurant business and just done it and had a comfortable life, but you decided to go out on your own and just do your own thing. And to me, that story is such an amazing story to tell, and I'm glad that the audience will get to listen to that. And it's just so inspiring to me to see that, especially you came out of a dark place and here you are right now. And a lot of people were in dark places, myself, during the
Yeah.
pandemic time, and to bring yourself out of there and to thrive. And it's not, it of course, you're always gonna have struggles, here or there. But to me, just hearing your story is just such an amazing story. I learned so much from you
Oh, thanks.
just
Thanks
now,
for
and
having
I'm
me.
inspired now. I want to go start do something. I want to get out of insurance and do. It's so scary to do that though when you're
It
comfortable. So
is. Well, and that's the thing. I was very comfortable for a long time, and I really, and again, that's why I love traveling, especially by myself. You're constantly putting yourself in uncomfortable positions, and I think that the reason that I travel so well by myself is I've been in situations by myself where I get those like spidey senses, and oh, this isn't right. This doesn't feel right. But I feel like my senses are so in tune because I'm constantly putting myself in these uncomfortable positions, and I can read people pretty well because of that. And it's practice makes perfect. You just kind of you have to keep making it super difficult on yourself, like I do. I've had practice since I was a kid. I always made it very, very difficult for myself.
same here. I don't know why I do that, but I do what I do. That's who I am and can't change now. Well, I just want to thank you so much. This has been just an incredible interview. I want to have like a part two with
Yeah,
you
let's do
another time because
it.
I think we just cracked the surface. So I think we have to have an ongoing segment with you on here just to talk about how awesome you are. Your story is incredible. So if someone wants to find you and Tiny Fish, where do we find you at?
Uh, well, you can check out the gram. I'm on the gram. You can buy TinyFish on the gram. You can buy it on the website. I'm in lots of places throughout the U.S., which is great.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, probably. I do have a TikTok. I I go in and post them, and I get I like participate in TikTok.
I,
I'm
I
too old
can't,
for
can't get it. I don't understand TikTok either. Like it's just weird. It's a weird place.
deep like when you do get in there and it's like this is how they get you, all of a sudden you just think I've been looking at these silly videos that I don't even care about for 15 minutes. I just lost 15 minutes of my life looking at these stupid videos that I don't care about.
Right? Sucks when TikTok. The worst. I don't even know. Kids. Well, hey, it's been so awesome. Just a pleasure speaking with you. Just a great human,
Yeah, thanks.
amazing spirit, and just so inspiring to talk to you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Well, I
And
appreciate you having me. This is great.
absolutely. I'm a Top Chef fan, but we're a super fan of you, Sarah, and it's been an honor to meet you. And hopefully we can
Yeah,
see you around in Portland sometime or across the
yeah,
globe or whatever. So that'll be
definitely.
awesome. So again, thank you so much. You can find the Passport Files podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere you listen to your podcast. Please make sure to like, subscribe, review, and share with your friends. You can also find little old me on Instagram at the Passport Files pod and Worldwide Bride, not on TikTok because I don't do much on there. And on YouTube, where you can see the full video interview. Thank you so much and cheers.